Welcome to this series on parenting tips for teenagers. I'm not kidding when I say there's nothing else out there like this. I'm your host, Greg Bear. So let's get going and talk about the unique challenges of raising happy and responsible teens and soon-to-be teens. This series is crafted for people who have teenagers but don't stop. Also for people who are on the verge of having teenagers, who are dealing with grown children who act like teenagers, who are in a relationship with somebody who acts like a teenager, full-grown adult, who interacts with teenagers on a regular basis, or who has teenage relatives. In short, if teenagers feature anywhere in your world, you are in the right place right now. If you pick up something valuable from this video, don't forget to smash that like button and hit the subscribe. You don't want to miss out on the insights that we'll be regularly providing for you about teenagers. Today, we're going to be talking about a specific subject, a child with Oppositional Defiant Disorder, or ODD, somebody who just defies all attempts at loving and teaching them. This can be an impossibly difficult problem. Pattern of behavior. And today we'll talk about one approach of many that are possible. Each child who's defiant and difficult and in pain has a different approach. As I give you an example of one child, you'll learn a lot if you have the particular situation of this child, but you'll also learn a lot if your situation is different, because you'll see principles that apply to you. So meet Marcus, who entirely rejected everything that mom tried to teach. And if he didn't get what he wanted, he pitched a fit worthy of a 2-year-old. You've all seen that. He refused to do his homework, teased his sister, and disrupted every activity in the home. Mom consistently loved and taught him as she learned in the ridiculously effective parenting training. But he still just fought. No response, no positive benefit that she could see. She imposed consequences for his unacceptable behaviors, and he responded by screaming and punching holes in the wall. Oddly, he did enjoy his mother loving him. So touching, kissing him, being kind to him, things that never occurred in his father's house. Mom and dad are divorced. But he defied all of her attempts at teaching or getting him to take responsibility for things around the house. I spoke with his mother, Sybil, on many occasions and suggested modifications to her loving and teaching, but nothing was working. Marcus would behave better on occasion, but his lapses into insanely violent defiance became the norm. This persisted over many months. Finally, Sybil told me she couldn't take it anymore. So this is like an end-stage defiant child. She couldn't sleep, her work was suffering, and Marcus's younger sister was beginning to have trouble with her own sleep, schoolwork, and behavior. Marcus was overwhelming and disturbing the entire family with his defiance, with his selfishness, and more. Mostly learned from his narcissistic father, who, as I said, is divorced from mom. Mom was at her wit's end and wanted to know what she could do. I suggested the following to Sybil, his mom, a bunch of steps that we're going to go through. So be patient. Number one, I said to her, it's time to irrefutably tell Marcus that he can make any choice he wants. He can do anything he wants. Now, kids love this one. Mom, you're going to have his complete attention when you say you get to make any choice you want. But now you're going to say you will experience the consequences of your own choices. Up to this point, Mom, you have almost foolishly, but you didn't know any better, you have paid the price. You've suffered the consequences of his choices, as has his sister. Now he's not going to understand what that means, which brings us to number two. He won't be convinced of this easily. He really believes that he's in charge of the world when he's at your house. That is not the case at his father's house, because his father is already supremely selfish and gets his own way. And his father has much more experience with selfishness and manipulation than Marcus does. So Marcus doesn't stand a chance in this contest. But at your house, he has learned to use techniques that you can't cope with. He's using his dad's techniques, the ones that drove you crazy when you were married to his dad. So this is just way overwhelming to you. 3, tell Marcus, you win. You have won the game. You have defied me and resisted. You win. He'll love that. He won't like what follows. He really does have the skills to ruin life in your house. But now you tell him the consequence will not be the victory that he thought he was achieving. What he has won is the opportunity now to live entirely with his father. So if you want to behave like this, you can behave like this at your father's house, where your father doesn't really seem to have difficulty with it. Why would you do such a seemingly extreme thing? Because nothing else has worked. And you and your daughter are just not strong enough to deal with the strength of his manipulations and emotional and physical violence. 4, are you trying to get rid of your son? No, you're simply letting Marcus know that the natural result of his continued defiance will be to return to the one environment where he won't completely disturb the home. In this case, to live with his father. In most cases where I have recommended this course of action, the child wakes up. He realizes that the price of the game he's playing is just too high, and he makes a decision to be more teachable and compliant. Now, this is one place where your child could really rebel. If you have concerns or questions, you drop them in the comments section, and I'll answer them there. 5, the moment after you tell Marcus what you intend to do, call his father and tell him that you simply cannot handle Marcus any longer. So that leaves you only 2 choices. So this is you talking to dad. You say, first possible choice is that you, mom, will take Marcus full time. One of the hugely disturbing things to Marcus is to go from your home where there's loving and teaching and responsibility to dad's home where there's 0 loving, 0 responsibility, no teaching. The kid plays video games all day long. So we got to go A or B here. A is that Marcus stays with you full time. Because if he does, that will enable you to love and teach Marcus without the fatally distracting influence of his dad's selfishness. You probably could leave out when you're talking to dad that he's selfish. It's likely that dad will reject this option because he would do almost anything to hurt you, just to keep you from having Marcus. Second choice, B. Dad takes Marcus full time. So it's all you or it's all dad. Back and forth, nuts. Unfortunately, dad will probably reject that option because he doesn't really want to raise Marcus. Never did. I know from past conversations with you that Marcus has complained that his father spends no time with him at all. So he just plays video games and he finds life with his father boring and unfulfilling. Even while he's resisting life with you, he still enjoys you more because you love him. Dad doesn't, and he can feel that. 6, because your husband will likely reject both options, you'll then need to explore other options. We always keep going till we find a solution. And you're going to be sharing this step, 6, with Marcus because he needs to understand finally, again, that his choices have consequences for him. To this point, he thought he could do anything he wanted without any inconvenience to himself. And you're about to teach him that's not true. So, brings us to number 7. Contact social services or child protective services, which goes by different names from state to state and country to country, and tell them that you have a completely incorrigible child in your home who refuses to do anything he's told, who punches holes in walls, who frightens his sister, who has hit you with his fist, and who you feel unsafe around. These are crimes when committed by adults. And in some states, he can be taken out of the home and temporarily put in institutions or foster home. Tell Marcus that you are exploring these options where he will live somewhere else with somebody else. Just tell him. 8, the next time he hits you, you call the police right then. You don't give him another chance. You just call the police. From experience, I tell you there's not a whole lot they can do, but when they arrive, it will make an impression on Marcus. So he might hesitate the next time. And then install cameras in every room where Marcus spends his time. You can show those recordings to Marcus, which sometimes makes quite an impression. He will see that he behaves like a child. And sometimes that's embarrassing enough. You're not going to embarrass him. He's going to be embarrassed by his own behavior. Sometimes that will motivate change. You can also show these recordings to law enforcement or child services to document his behavior. Now, if you do all this, what are the possible consequences? I've seen it go a lot of ways, and you can't predict for sure. First is that the child is motivated to stop his defiance. That's the most common result. 2, the child goes to the other parent's house, your ex's, for a while, but then he realizes he'd rather be loved and taught at one home, yours, than be neither loved or taught at dad's home. So he eventually wakes up. That might happen in a week. He might wake up in a month. I've seen kids come back to the loving environment after 2 years. Last, the child continues to live with the other parent, your ex, which might seem like an unthinkable loss to you. You might be thinking, oh, with tears in your eyes, I can't lose my child. But you've already lost your child. At this point, you have. He's not responding to loving and teaching. And without him, you blossom and grow, and you're able to save the life of your daughter. If your son decides he won't accept your loving and teaching, you've got to do something where you can survive. In short, I'm saying that there is no appreciable risk in taking any of these steps because he's already effectively lost, which is not to say that it wouldn't be very difficult for you emotionally, possibly legally, and in other ways. And I'm not recommending that you do something that will permanently result in the loss of your child. But I am suggesting that you do whatever it takes, whatever risk is involved, to communicate to your son that his behavior could result in severe consequences to him. Defiant children do pay attention to the price they're paying, whereas they resist all the words they hear. The behavior of a defiant child will destroy them if nothing is done. That's a fact. But you can take steps to wake that child up. And you certainly can take steps to save yourself and your daughter. Bless you in all of this. I hope to see you soon, all of you. I'm here to help you resolve the conflicts in your mind and heart about the best parenting tips, even in the most difficult situations like this one with Oppositional Defiant Disorder. I'm Greg Bear, and I'll see you soon. And in the meantime, remember that it's always about real love.